Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to another Assassin's Creed Shadows video. Today, I'm going to go with the tips and tricks video of the stuff that I've learned playing this game. I have just a little over 300 hours in this game, so I figured I might as well make a video like this, which I've been thinking about for a while, but I just hadn't had the time to sort of sit down and put my ideas in order as far as what I wanted to talk about in this video. But yeah, let's take a look at the tips themselves. So this one is not a tip, but it's just, I'm going to go over stuff that I've learned just playing the game. So this might be useful to you. You might not find it interesting. So there's going to be sections. If this one doesn't interest you, then feel free to skip ahead to the relevant one to you. But yeah, so first of all, I wanted to go over the 3 values that we have above the top row of gear. So right above the katana, tanto, and the horse, you'll see that there's a cross, which signifies your HP, and then a little diamond or rhombus, which is your adrenaline chunks that are available to you. And then the 2 weapons crossed means it's sort of like an average of your DPS. It's a reference number, so that's the reason that I wanted to talk about this. It's because it's not your DPS per se. You'll notice that your DPS is mainly affected by your main weapon, and I think to some degree by your secondary weapon, but it seems to be mostly your main weapon, and then your trinket, right? But it doesn't take into account armor or helmet, because these are variables. Also, basically any engraving that is a variable that depends on you triggering some sort of state, that is not going to be taken into account. So for example, if we look at this one in comparison, it says that the DPS is 9645, which is not as high as this one, which is 8611. However, the potential for damage that I have on this build is higher than any of my builds, because this is the one that has the potential to one-shot most enemies in the game. You know, I think the best that I've done is almost 6 health bars or health segments. Just under 6 health segments. And, that's pushing different variables into the equation. But yeah, so for example, if I go ahead and unequip both the tanto and the katana, you'll see that it significantly drops, right? And then if I unequip the trinket, it'll bring me down to some sort of base damage level that's tied to my character level, which is 60. And then that 17 is the mastery level, which doesn't really keep increasing your base level. It's just keeping track of your XP that you're earning. So if I go ahead and take off my armor, you'll see that value does not change. So it's still going to be 764 no matter what. We put this on. Where is that? Oh, it's going to be fun finding that, because I do have a lot that look the same. I think that one is closer to the bottom. Maybe one of these. Yeah, there we go. So yeah. So that's more determined by your trinket and your main weapon. You'll see it'll go back to 8611. And then if I add the tanto, sometimes it doesn't change it. Yeah, it's not going to change it. So there you go. So as you can see, the weapon has a DPS of 2078. And then this is taken into account anything that's active that doesn't have to be triggered, right? That's not a variable. So this is taking into account my 1% damage per unspent mastery point, which I have 200 points unspent. It's taking those into account. If I were to just unassign something, let's say over here. Let's say that I spend, well, I can't here, but let's say that I spend, it was 86.11, right? So let's say that I spend some points here. And now I only have 194. That should update over here. And now I have 81.64. So it is taking that into account. And then if I remove that, it should give me back what I had. But this is kind of unreliable, honestly. I don't know why it does this, but sometimes it'll change the value for no reason. And then again, it'll change it back. Yeah, so I still have 200 points. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. I think this needs to be fixed because it's not accurate. You know, there seems to be for no reason. But yeah, so that's basically as regards your DPS. And it doesn't really reflect accurately what your DPS potential is because this is not taking into account the damage that I do when enemies are vulnerable, which is over here. I have 24% plus 30 from the armor, 30 from the trinket, and when I'm using the Tanto, I have another 30. So that's 90 plus 24, 114. And for the katana, it's not taken into account the critical damage that it could do, which I have just around 200 with all the bonuses that I have from gear and the points that I have in katana. So it's not taking that into account. Therefore, like I said, it's not really an accurate measure. Now, I wanted to talk about engravings next because it's such an integral part of your build. So that's why I'm with this guy. So one of the ways that I was able to start coming up with ideas for builds even before I got my hands on the actual engravings themselves is because you can come here and you have to have the forge unlocked to level 2, which I think you have to have, I can't remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure you have to have Yasuke unlocked before you can unlock the forge. And you come over here and you just take any, piece of gear that you want to engrave, and then you can see all the possible engravings that a piece of gear can have, right? And it'll also show you the stuff that you haven't found or bought yet. So for me, I still have this one that I haven't been able to find. And I'm not sure, a lot of these actually I found before, I was even looking for them. So I just found, and I wasn't paying attention to see exactly where I found them. But I did find a bunch of these that are like this one, rumored to be held by traders in Omi. And I don't know if they were contracts or I don't know if they were part of, main story missions. I don't know when they dropped for me. And also there's ones that have to do with, where you buy them from merchants, right? So if I take this, some of these over here, I still haven't been able to buy. And I don't know if they unlock during specific seasons. No, not this. Where is it? I think it's a Kusarigama one, maybe. But yeah, I had a few that, let's see if it's here. No, I think they're helmet ones, actually. The ones that I'm looking for. Let's see. So yeah, all of these sold by a merchant in Kyoto, Osaka, and Sakai. And I've kept coming back to the merchants in all of these places, and they don't have these engravings. So I don't know if it has to be a specific season or when, but I guess it just at some point. Well, I don't know if there's any story progression that needs to happen, but I am end game. I only have a few, I wouldn't even call them side quests, but I do have a few quests that involve just like killing Ronin in a specific area or killing bandits or whatever. you know, not actual main quests. Like everything is done. But anyway, another thing that I wanted to mention is a way to be, like I was saying, there's a way to know the possible combinations for any build that you're curious about trying. So I think somebody in one of the, I think it was the poison build video, somebody had a comment where they said, I didn't know that you could have that engraving, right? So for those of you who are curious about the possibilities, you can just come here to the blacksmith, and if you're curious if you can have an engraving for a certain build, like any helmet can come with any of the engravings that are found in this list, and the same goes for armor and for any of the weapons, right? So as long as you can see it on the relevant engravings list, that means that any piece of gear in that category can come with that specific engraving, right? So anything that I'm seeing right here can be an engraving that a helmet comes with, which is quite a lot, as you can see. But usually you're going to see the same ones for each type of gear, like 80% of the time. So 80% of the time, anything that's helmets, you're going to see some sort of health segment removal. Like any of these, you'll see way more than any of the rest. And then there's others that you see a little less often. And then there's ones that you never see, right? And those are the ones that are really difficult because you have to keep farming merchants for them. But yeah, so that's as far as the engravings goes. Obviously, it's the same for all types of gear. So anything that you can find from this list can be an engraving that specific type of gear comes with. Now, another thing that I noticed is as regards to upgrading, and this also has to do with the with another tip that I wanted to talk about, which is to actually, let me get out of this menu first. So your hideout, right, can be, wait, how do I access that? Oh, it's over here. So if you come to your hideout here, you can see that, for example, mine is max level, and that gives me, and then you can actually highlight all the other types of buildings that you have, and it tells you the effects and then all the upgrades you have. So I have everything maxed out, right? So this one, the Kakurega, gives me cheaper unlocking costs for Kakuregas, and the Forge gives me the ability to upgrade up to level 60 and to apply legendary engravings. And then this dojo, allies can be trained up to veteran rank. Study allows for more scouts, and the stables allows for more resources from stockpiles. And for the hideout, I don't remember all of the bonuses that you get, but the two last ones are you're able to get resources for upgrades from the stockpiles, and the costs at the forge are decreased by 20%. There's a bunch of benefits, but I'll go into that in a little bit in more detail. But another thing that I wanted to mention is about upgrades themselves. So if we go over here, and this is probably something that a lot of you guys know, but it's always better to just wait, you know, unless you're really, and I understand because a lot of times you just really want to upgrade stuff as you go, especially if it's a weapon that you're really enjoying. But for most of these things, you can just come here and then upgrade all at once. And upgrading a whole bunch of levels is the same price as, you know, for example, this one, it's upgrading 45 levels. It's 550 and 712, 550 iron sand and 712 mon. And it's the same as this one. Actually, no, this one. Oh, no, never mind. That's for legendary. So you'll see this legendaries. So each specific type of gear or level has its own costs. So rare katanas are more expensive, less expensive, and then epic are a little bit more expensive, and legendaries are the most expensive to upgrade. So this one is 550, and it's the same 550 plus 712 for 45 levels or for 15 levels. So like I said, it just makes more sense for you to upgrade a bunch of levels at the same time. And one more thing that I wanted to mention, well, like I said, this one, that's glitching. It's not showing me the cost, but it's cheaper than the epic. So rare is cheaper than epic, and this is the same thing. So 37 levels, 37 to 60 is 366, and 47 to 60 is 366 plus 472. But one thing that I did notice is that for example, both of these are the same, but as you can see, the cost is different. They're the same level, and so the cost to upgrade one level, or the rest of the levels all the way to 60 from 47, 13 levels, is not the same. And it's because stuff that you get from the exchange, which is the case with this one, or I guess rewards. This is from the this cerulean is from the rewards you get for doing the projects. So these, for some reason, are cheaper to upgrade all the way, even though they're technically legendaries. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind, which I found to be unusual but interesting. And yeah, so like it makes a big difference. I would recommend you to, now that we've seen this, I would definitely recommend you to upgrade your hideout as soon as possible. And I want to go into this because it's not super clear, and it's not very intuitive the way you do it, but it took some time researching and looking for answers online. But if you click X on any building, it'll give you options, right? Any available options. So I can't upgrade this one, but I can customize it. And that means that I can put on different roof, different siding or walls, and then I can reorganize the sets within and the kind of stuff that I have on display. That's how you're going to find all that. How to customize that. And then you can go into this build menu and then build all your different types of buildings or rooms. And so this, if they weren't fully upgraded, this is where you would see. So right here, I can see the upgrade. And this is where you upgrade it in the screen, which they actually kind of change it for your whole hideout, right? Like here, you just press X on the given building. But for your hideout, you actually, and nobody tells you, the game doesn't tell you anywhere, but to reach level 10, you just have to keep building more rooms, right? So I had to build 1, 2, 3, 4 galleries, and then the tea room and the study. So basically, they want you to build every type of room available to you. And so if we go and click R3, then we see all the upgrades, right? So it goes for scouts can bring Mon, increase shrine boon duration by 15 minutes. Available scouts can bring back hideout resources, reduced engraving costs at the forge by 20%. Available scouts can bring back crafting materials at season's end, refill health and adrenaline in Kakurega safe house and the hideout. Health and adrenaline in Kakurega safe house and not the hideout. Available scouts can bring gear at season's end, reduce gear upgrade costs at the forge by 20%, and stockpiles also reward crafting materials, right? So that's the full list of upgrades that you get, all the bonuses that you get. And I would really recommend you guys to work on this as soon as you can. Just unlock the different types of buildings and then come build as many as you need to get to level 10 so that you can get all those bonuses early on. Like right now, you see that I don't have, I don't need any more mon or resources. Actually, what I do, which is going to be my next tip, what I usually do is there's if you haven't heard about them, is the itinerant vendors or merchants. And there's 3 locations that I know of. I can't remember where they all are, but one of them is over here, actually. I should keep it marked. And it's not too far from the hideouts. Easy enough if you have this marker over here by the viewpoint. And so I know that this itinerant merchant shows up in the winter and in the summer. So right now it's the fall. I can't go look because I know he won't be there. But every once in a while, just come back. If you know where the other 2 are, then definitely, put a marker or just make a mental note. I just know that this one is over here by this big boulder because it's the one that I come to more often. And, I just get lucky. I feel like he's there whenever I go look for him. So what you do is you go and you sell your resources. So right now, as you can see, I have on the right side of the screen, you see that I have 288 crops, 216. No, I think I have more actually. Yeah, so I have 2,696 crops, 1,585 wood, and 423 minerals. And the reason to go to those guys is because they give you 50% more, so 150% of the value that you would get with the regular merchants that buy your stuff. So definitely go there. You can also sell all the valuable items that you have, which I haven't really found any use for. So all of these guys, all these valuables, you can sell to them and, get a couple mon that way. But mainly you want to sell these because usually that's another tip. I always, so right now I have only used 2 of my scouts, but I try to always tag those resource stockpiles so that at the end of the season, I get my scouts to come back and bring me, all the resources that I'm eventually going to go sell with the itinerant merchants for money. And that way you'll never be running low on funds. Anytime you want to upgrade, usually you should be fine with the rest. If you keep, looking every time you go to a castle or any place where there's an encounter and you see those, the little chests that give you resources, right? So that's my recommendation, to be able to have all the money and resources you need for when you find, for when you find yourself needing to upgrade weapons. And another one is that, as you can see, I have 18 gold. And I always, every time you find one of those itinerant merchants, they always have 2 pieces of gold. And they're quite expensive. I think they're like 10 or 15K each. But, with the money that you're making from selling all of these materials or resources, you're going to be fine. And so I've been using some gold whenever I didn't have the rest, any of the crafting materials that I needed for upgrades. But I've also collected a lot. So, that's just another useful tip for you guys. And as far as, so that's as far as the gear, like I said, and upgrades and, just the general stuff that I've learned playing the game. So actually, before I go, let me show you guys. But yeah, what you want to do here is, if you're looking for specific gear, come to a merchant after the season changes. So before you talk to any merchant for the first time, remember all the merchants refresh their inventory every time the season changes. So I haven't been to one since the season changed, which means that the inventory is fresh. You're going to come over here and then you're going to save your game. And then you're going to talk to him. And then see what he has. If he's got anything that sounds like it might be useful to you, then definitely go ahead and grab that. And if not, you just from this same screen, you load your save. And then talk to, and you see it's a different merchant. You should be able to talk to him, and then he's got new inventory. Everything's completely different. So you can see if there's anything that suits your needs. And yeah, you just rinse and repeat. That's how I was able to find engravings that didn't drop too often. Oh, one more thing that I wanted to mention. So right here, as you can see, you probably heard about these golden numbers, right? So when stats have a golden number, it means that there's they are higher, right? But they're higher in relation to the rest of the items in this inventory for this particular merchant, right? It doesn't mean that they're higher in general for the game, because see, this one is 1912 and it's a helmet. So if we go into my helmets, you can see that 1718. So I have helmets that are 1900. I already forgot what that one was, but I think it was 1700, 1993. So that doesn't mean that his helmets were because he had a helmet with golden numbers. It doesn't mean that it was the apps like, oh, this is 1912. So this is actually pretty good. You know, it's 1900 is along the higher numbers for that type of weapon. But this one actually, it's a pretty good example, right? Because we have a weapon, a Tanto, that's 2325. So this merchant specifically actually has items that are on the higher end of the possible maximum for this specific, for these two categories at least, right? So it has a helmet that's within the 1900s. So the highest that I've seen is around 2000 ish for a helmet. And for Tantos, highs that I have is around 2400 overall. So in comparison to any other Tanto at level 60. And so this guy has a Tanto that's 2300, which is about 10% higher than the other two that he has, right? And this one has posture DPS 9700, which is about 10% higher than the other stuff that he has, right? So he does have, and then same with the katana. So this specific vendor actually does have items that are within the higher, but this one actually doesn't make sense, right? So there's contradiction even right here, because this has 2000 DPS, right? And next to him, he's got another katana that has 2100, but doesn't have, you know, golden numbers. And that's probably because this one has an affliction. So weapons that have an affliction are usually their DPS is lower, which makes sense because the affliction gives you extra damage or access to some sort of extra damage, as opposed to weapons that don't have an affliction, which is compensated by having higher DPS. So in comparison to this one, it also actually doesn't make sense. So yeah, you can see right here that the golden numbers are not really something to be trusted, because this one also has days buildup and it has slightly higher DPS, but no golden numbers, right? So don't just go buying anything that has golden numbers thinking that it's the best that you can find, because a lot of times you'll find that it's not. So this one has, again, this one has golden numbers and this one doesn't, and it's higher. right? So just, you need to be more familiar with the kind of max values that you can get for each specific armor type, which takes me to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the bonuses for engravings, right? So most bonuses are actually kind of garbage. Most of the stuff that you can find, 24 damage with tools, 15% damage to refill ration after armor break. So most of these 20% damage with consecutive enemy hits, 6% critical chance on enemies below half health. Most of these, if you pay attention to the way the damage works in this game, most of these are not really that great. 30% of an adrenaline chunk. And anytime that you see some sort of damage bonus like this, 20% damage at night, it's not going to be great, because there has to be stuff that's not that great and stuff that's actually, meta, right? So this one, 12% damage with posture attack, 50% damage when health is critical. I mean, this is actually a good value. So anything that's 50%, anything you're getting a bonus around 50%, that's actually something that's going to make more of a difference when you stack it, right? Because of the way that damage stacks in this game. Like, a lot of things, when I started playing it, I thought that the Oni's Fury was like an insane bonus, because you had the potential to have 60 or 75%, damage additional to your DPS that you had, right? But it's actually, it's okay, but if you think about it, 75%, and you're committing to not using legendary slots in most of your, for most of your gear, right? But you can also just do something like this, which gives you 2 bonuses for 100% damage, and both of these apply after you kill someone, right? So I'm getting 100% damage on my next hit. That's going to do 50% posture damage and 50% just standard damage, right? So you have to be able to capitalize on those bonuses, right? So for this specific, you need to understand what the applicability of your build and the way you're choosing to use your build, the way that that's going to give you the maximum payoff, right? So for this, I know that if I go and kill someone, let's see. Let's find someone to kill right now. Hopefully. Over here. Let's kill this guy. So I know that now I have 50% damage applied. And so if I use my katana, it's going to do that damage as posture and standard damage, right? But if I use my tanto, this one hit, just pay attention to the health bar. So this one hit so let's see. That's one hit. Well, I actually got a crit right there. It's not the same as this, which is this attack right here. So a single hit like this, like that, is not going to be the same as this, or this, or this, or this, because these are all passives, right? These are my leap strike and escape strike, and then the other 2 that I talk about in my advanced melee tech. All of these have higher armor, break or armor damage values attached to them, and also just higher damage values attached to them, right? So you just have to be aware of how you're choosing to use your bonuses for these things, right? So yeah, that's as far as damage bonuses goes. And the reason that a lot of the game, you can have gear with stuff that doesn't really give you that big of a bonus. The reason that works is because your main damage still comes mostly from the weapon and your trinket, right? So as long as you have something that's good enough on your trinket, an engraving for your trinket or your main weapon that's good enough, that's going to contribute to your general damage, your overall damage number, and then you're going to be okay. But the big difference you're going to see in those engravings that give you big bonuses, right? So, if you're going with anything that sounds like it's not that great, then it's probably not. And that's pretty much it. I did have one more small tip for you guys, which is if you're playing and then you just press and hold the options button. This is on PlayStation. I don't know any other PC or Xbox or whatever. But if you press and hold, it's going to take you to the objectives board. And then if you hover to your hideout, you can just fast travel by pressing X. And it's usually faster than finding your, pulling up your map and finding your hideout, depending on where you are on the map. So yeah, those are all the tips that I have for you guys. I hope you found this useful. Again, thank you for all the feedback. Thank you for all the comments. I appreciate it always, and I'll catch you on the next one.